If it pleases you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Senator Small Ferguson. Senator Duncan, Senator, come on, engage your mic for him. No, Senator Gill, engage that mic for me. Senator Duncan.
Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Good to go. Yes. Good. Mr. President, my Senate colleagues, good morning. So, Senator Small Ferguson, you have made a few points, and I'd like to address them in relationship to in your presentation. Let me start with the last one, the point you made about hedging. And the former Minister of Finance, Dr. Nigel Clark, spoke to hedging. He said hedging is expensive, unpredictable, and can lead to losses if poorly timed. And we saw that poor timing in 2015. Now let me explain the approach of the Andrew Holness-led administration to gyrations and movement in commodity prices. We move to protect the most vulnerable in our country. In 2022, in response to rising energy prices, the Jamaica Labour Party administration launched the We Care Energy Co-Pay program. The GOJ implemented a direct pass-through to the JPS where the government of Jamaica paid 20% of the electricity bill for households consuming 200 kilowatt hours or less per month, benefiting over 457,000 people for a period of April to July 2027. We protect the most vulnerable. In relationship to fiscal responsibility and overall debt management, I will speak to this in the presentation a little more, but I just want to note that the debt to GDP ratio will rise to 68% this year and will trend down to 60% in 2029, 2030. We remain committed to fiscal responsibility and manage our debt dynamics. Thirdly, in relationship to NHT, the NHT will be spending 53.7 capital expenditure this year, which is almost 50% of the total public body spending, not central government, public body spending of over $100 billion. $53.7 billion on housing solutions. This year, starting construction over 10,000 units. And last year that there was significant delivery of units. We can't get into the numbers, but I'm telling you, this 53.7 that's earmarked and in the budget for units. Yeah, man, I have it right here, right here. We will get back to that. We'll get back to that, sir. But thank you. Now, we talk about asset tax. And there was a big hullabaloo last time we spoke about this. We came here to debate the movement in the filing declaration date for corporate income tax. I came here prepared to deal with that. And you accused me of deflecting. When it was you guys, you on that side that deflected, and was speaking about the asset tax as a policy. No, there is alignment across the financial sector, economists, on either side of the aisle of it being a distortionary tax. And the Honorable Nigel Clark and everyone has spoken to that. But we must make tough fiscal choices. And this government of Jamaica, the Andrew Holness-led administration, will make tough fiscal choices. But I note that in the Minister of Finance, in the spokesperson and Minister of Finance, and opposition leader made no recommendation about removing the asset tax in their presentation. So when we speak about the sale of receivables, the sale of receivables were designed to fund one-off capital expenditures, a one-off securitization measure to fund capital expenditure, one-off capital expenditure, not to fund recurring revenues. Thank you. Okay, that is a strategy to move and get things done. So I will now move into my substantive presentation. Thank you very much, Joe. Ramon, you make the thing exciting, man. May I tell you the truth, man. Thank you. Let's jump right in. So I rise this afternoon to support and endorse the government's estimates of expenditure for the fiscal year 26-27 and support the passage of the Appropriations Act without amendment. Jamaica's development agenda is squarely on the table. Jamaica's macro-fiscal position has significantly changed in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa. Prior to its passage, Jamaica managed to record fiscal surpluses in 7 of the 8 prior fiscal years up to the end of the fiscal year 2024-25. While the exception being COVID in 2020-2021, and we were on track to achieve a 60% debt to GDP ratio ahead of the forecasted timeline. Since Melissa, however, the trajectory of public finances has been altered materially. As a result, the government is pursuing an aggressive development and growth agenda over the next 3 years and beyond to return our economy to pre-Melissa GDP levels by financial year 28-29, and to reduce fiscal deficits over this period while looking to sustain growth over the average 1% growth levels we have experienced for far too long. For the months running up, there's a lot of uncertainty running up to the budget. The country had heard about various announcements around NARA, about reconstruction, but there was no consolidated picture of how the government intended to rebuild, how it would be financed, or what the institutional architecture would look like. So I heard our finance minister courageously deliver the revenue measures for the first time in a budget opening presentation. and I waited with bated breath for a Prime Minister presentation, and he delivered what Jamaica required: an ambitious, coherent, multidimensional plan that brings together infrastructure, institutions, and financing in a single integrated framework. Dealing with NARA, infrastructure, roads, and regional investment strategies, ecosystems. Central to this vision are four guiding principles that will shape how Jamaica rebuilds. Principles that are simple to understand but profound in their implications. Build, number one, build in the right places. Far too long, critical infrastructure, hospitals, schools, government offices, homes have been concentrated in low-lying coastal zones with full knowledge of the climate risk. That changes now. Where we build matters as much as what we build. Future development must be progressively relocated away from high-risk areas, and that's the intention. We have to build systems, number two, that can withstand failure. The destruction wrought in places like Black River and Falmouth exposed a dangerous pattern. When everything is concentrated in one corridor, one surge can knock out everything at once. Going forward, our power grids, water systems, roads, and communication networks must be designed with backup capacity and distributed architecture, so that when one part fails, the rest keeps functioning. Resilience and single points of failure are incompatible. Now, let me deal with a significant area that is going to drive sustainable growth for Jamaica. Building regional sub-economies, not just projects. This is an imperative that will drive the sustainable growth. Roads, hospitals, schools, housing, energy, these cannot continue to be planned and delivered in isolation from each other. The vision is integrated regional development, where infrastructure investments are connected and sequenced to create self-containing economic clusters across the island. The goal is not simply to repair what was damaged, but to use reconstruction as a catalyst to build genuine regional sub-economies, each with its own productive identity, employment base, and capacity to generate growth. That's number two. We're building, number four, a broader economic base. Physical resilience alone is not enough. A truly resilient nation must also be economically adaptable with a productive base that spans agro-industry, logistics, manufacturing, digital service, and emerging sectors. Food and energy security must be treated as strategic national priorities, not afterthoughts. We will experience shocks, but when they arrive, Jamaica must have the economic depth to absorb it and keep moving. These four principles, build in the right places, build systems that can withstand failure, build regional sub-economies, and build a broader economic base, are not abstract ideas. They are already being applied in the rebuilding of Black River and Falmouth, and they will guide every investment decision under NARA going forward. I want to speak a little bit about capital expenditure and increases. Central government capital expenditure is projected to increase in the medium term in response to the crisis and will average just about 90 billion each year for the next 4 years, central government. For 2026-27, the central government expenditure will be almost 100 billion. No, let me dial back. Central government capital expenditure is projecting to increase in the medium-term response to the crisis and will average $90 billion over the next 4 years. For this year, the central government expenditure will be almost $100 billion, which is almost double the amount spent in the previous fiscal year. Public bodies' capital expenditure, including AHD, will also increase by $25 billion this year to $105 billion. So for the upcoming fiscal year, the total capital expenditure budget between central government and public bodies will be over $200 billion and will sustain levels within the range of 160 to 180 billion through financial year 29-30, which is 40% to 50% greater than previous year averages. This is significantly greater. The number is $59 billion This is significantly greater than allocations during previous years, and we will need to overcome capacity and procurement challenges in order to execute on this expanded capital expenditure portfolio of projects. Growth is projected to range from 1 to 3% over the medium term, as outlined in the GOJ fiscal policy paper. So capital spending will be crucial to meet forecasted growth rates at the sustained growth levels above the historical 1 to 2%. Maintaining these growth levels will ensure increased economic activity, tax revenues, and thereby improving the fiscal situation and moving Jamaica back to a balanced budget and materially lower fiscal deficit over time. So how we deal with the challenges and the delays and the bureaucracy. Timely execution of projects has been our main challenge. NARA and Fast Jamaica are meant to address this. The PM was right to acknowledge candidly that Jamaica has never lacked vision of projects. What has consistently failed us is speed of execution. The root causes are well known. Fragmented approvals, cumbersome procurement, bureaucratic layering. NARA directly addressed this for public infrastructure with special powers to accelerate approvals and project delivery. Equally important is Fast Jamaica, which established a structured fast-track pathway for transformational private investments of US $150 million or more. I would like to recommend that Fast Jamaica becomes a companion to NARA to recommend that incorporating both into the same legislative framework or at minimum ensuring statutory linkages between them would maximize the combined impact. The government cannot do this alone, and Fast Jamaica recognizes this reality, and therefore it is public-private sector working together to grow Jamaica. We also have speed. We must overcome bottlenecks at every stage of the construction project cycle to accelerate growth and get us back to normal within this 3-year period. So the streamlining processes for efficiency and economic development will also be critical to the reforms to the public procurement system to make it faster and efficient and also enable the increase in approval thresholds while reducing the time between procurement decisions. So actively being worked on and will become a reality. Our Minister of Education will deal with the human capital area, but I would say there are significant investments that are being made in the human capital area because we cannot do this. People are the center of the policy and who will drive economic growth and development. However, to complement the GOJ's human capital development efforts, given the scale of the rebuilding efforts, along with the shortfall of specialized skill sets in the private sector, we should look to leverage foreign talent for higher value-added services, which can transfer knowledge to our local talent over time. This will deal with the structural challenge, having achieved full employment prior to Melissa with an unemployment rate which was at 3.3%, almost full employment. This initiative about bringing in foreign talent with the appropriate skill sets for the private sector and public sector will build capacity while we continue to build our human capital development and equip our labor force. Speaking a little bit about energy, growth will also be massively helped by reducing Jamaica's energy costs, which average between US 35 cents and US 40 cents per kilowatt hour and are significantly higher than our peers across the Caribbean and Latin America, which currently averages 25 cents per kilowatt hour. There should be a sustained focus on bringing down the cost of energy to increase competitiveness and productivity. There will be strategic projects around energy, which will be a part of the portfolio of projects that will be executed. Also, with the negotiations with the Jamaica Public Service, we expect, or others that may come to the table, we expect that this will be an objective to bring down the cost of energy. Public sector compensation and fiscal risk. In the current wage negotiations, all stakeholders will need to take into account the fiscal challenges. Increasing productivity and efficiency of the public and private sector will become crucial to provide increased tax revenues and fiscal space. After tremendous sacrifice and restraint of the public sector, there was a cumulative increase of $300 billion from a compensation level of $222 billion when the public sector held out until the public sector compensation review was completed. And by the time the wage bill was $222 billion. That wage bill has now moved to $519 billion in 26-27. That's an increase of $60 billion per year, or 20% average in public sector compensation year over year for the last 5 years, from $222 billion to $519 billion. That creates a fiscal risk, and that is a decision that was taken by the Andrew Holness-led administration government about compensating our public sector at fair wages. Now, this does create a real compression on our expenditures. And therefore, we have to keep managing this very carefully, because as a percentage of tax revenues, our public sector compensation is now at 56% in 25-26 of tax revenues and 13.8% of GDP. Now, this is coming from 9.6% of GDP and 36.1% of tax revenues. So as a country, as Jamaicans, we need to work together to ensure that we moderate, manage, and everybody takes a collective responsibility to this, because we need to educate, make our country aware, such that we can all manage expectations. As we know, if you have the public sector taking 56% of tax revenues, and it will average about right around 50% for the next 4 years, as outlined in the fiscal policy paper, this will reduce the fiscal flexibility we have, and therefore we were talking about health, education, national security, and our social safety net. These are areas where we need to focus, so we just need to ensure that we have the right balance in terms of our expenditures. So we can, thank you very much on that point. Think you can clap that one in. Keith, you not clap? Okay. You don't clap that point? Okay, let's move on. Let's deal with productivity. Let's deal with productivity. Senator Brown, let's deal with productivity. Let's deal with productivity, because I know that you would very much want to see the productivity of the public and private sector increase. I know that you would definitely want to see the output of our country increase per worker. I know that all of us want exactly that. So the national effort should be focused on increasing productivity and efficiency in the public and private sector. This will drive growth, thereby increasing growth levels beyond the forecasted 1 to 3%. Thereby, increasing productivity increases domestic demand, GDP, and tax revenues. This will create greater fiscal space, increasing per capita incomes for Jamaican public and private sector workers. Greater per capita incomes, which currently stands at US 8,000 GDP per capita, which is amongst the lowest in the region. So we have to increase productivity in order to move this number. And with the development agenda for Jamaica, we have a real opportunity if we companion increasing productivity with this development agenda. We have a real opportunity as a country to really move these levels of per capita GDP levels, growth in GDP levels for ourselves as a country. So Jamaica's productivity challenge is a wake-up call that we can no longer ignore. The data the Prime Minister presented on labor productivity was sobering and deserves to be widely discussed. Jamaica produces approximately $8.99 of output, US $9 of output per worker, 8.81. Less than half the Caribbean average of US $20.50. This is a structural challenge and it demands a structural response, including investment in skills, technology, and the productive sector. The PM has indicated a full policy position on productivity will be brought to Parliament, and that we welcome. That we welcome. Back to the public sector compensation. The PM was right to flag this as a fiscal risk and call for future wage settlements to be anchored in productivity and GDP growth rather than inflation alone. This is a difficult but necessary conversation, and it must be had honestly in Jamaica's best interest. Now, the financing of this development agenda. The core of the US $6.7 billion multilateral package, providing patient, affordable capital for public infrastructure where commercial returns alone cannot justify private investment. That's approximately $4.3 billion. This support package is designed to provide needed capital without destabilizing Jamaica's improved debt profile. And as we discussed a little earlier, Senator Small Ferguson, sir, we see Jamaica's debt to GDP ratio tracking back down to 60% by 29-30, despite increased debt levels to finance this financing of our development, growth and development resurgence agenda. Private sector mobilization, US $2.4 billion of PPPs, public-private partnerships. US $2.4 billion is specially designed to crowd in private capital, with the government providing the enabling conditions and private investors providing execution. $2.4 billion of multilateral funding for PPPs. Private sector coming together with the public sector to execute with timely and at scale. We have seen examples of this. Senator Tomlinson, IDB Invest, and Saticor, high value opportunities. IDB Invest and Saticor with the Rio Cobre water treatment project, which was just implemented about last year, right? That is an example of public-private partnership. We have the model. We have the know-how. Now we scale it. And the capital markets and the private sector, as Minister Hill indicated, must prepare themselves. And we are innovative enough in this financial sector, as Saticor was in structuring this deal, and Burita has also in other public-private partnerships, that we have the know-how. So let us leverage this opportunity. for public-private partnerships. Let's leverage this US $2.4 billion and to be a companion to the $4.3 billion of that is funding public infrastructure, $6.7 billion US dollars available to drive growth and development, the resurgence of our Jamaican. Oh, we went a little further than that. Senator Small Ferguson, domestic capital. And as president of the JSDA, you have done tremendous work in this regard, sir, in leading that entity. And I acknowledge that.
Senator Duncan, you might have to congratulate him after the sit-in.
What the time done?
You have a minute to wrap.
Okay, minute to wrap up. I'm almost there. Okay. So domestic capital, mobilizing Jamaica's own savings through pension funds and insurance companies. I was particularly pleased to see that, and you and I are. And the recent reforms announced by the Minister of Finance unlock long-term pools of institutional capital are very helpful in this regard, and this will be an area where the private sector can play a meaningful role in as we go forward. I'll also note that we have a listening government, that the recent government responsiveness on the beverage tax and the environmental protection levy demonstrate that this is a listening administration, willing to make adjustments when concerns are raised, and that is to be commended. In terms of the environment that we have created, and I know that one of my Senate colleague will speak to crime, but enabling to bring down the cost of security as a country, we have done tremendously well with murder rates trending to things. So, a final call to action. I can beg you 1 minute? No. Okay, let me just finish this one then. I have enjoyed the budget debate. The opposition has put forward solutions and have moved away from their oppose stance, which I welcome. However, Finance Minister, the Honorable Favour Williams from Ty Dixon St. Catherine, has been measured and has delivered a solid budget in her own style, along with solid gut-wrenching blows to the opposition, them sending them back to sharpen their pencils for the next budget debate. I have to acknowledge our visionary Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Michael Holness, the builder, who has once again stepped up for Jamaica through relief, recovery, and now to our next phase of resurgence. I'm grateful for his steady hand guiding Jamaica through choppy waters, and I'm confident that come what may, under his leadership, Jamaica will continue to move forward to prosperity for all Jamaicans, regardless of class, creed, or political affiliation. Thank you.